The mid-game play you're about to learn is what wins final circles, and most players never realize that they lost the game right here. Today, we're breaking down mid-game rotations, the moment after you loot what you need, and before the game decides how the rest of the match is going to play out.
Holy fuck!
Here's the problem I see in the mid-game. Players stop making decisions. They already have enough loot, they already survived their drop, so they start waiting. They wait for a teammate to ping something. They wait for a fight or a redeploy attempt to happen nearby. They wait for the circle to force them to move. And while they're waiting, the lobby is setting up around them. By the time they rotate, every good position is already occupied. Mid-game is where good games quietly fall apart. Not in one big mistake, but in small delays. An extra building, a wasted fight, a late decision. That's all it takes. At that point, you're not rotating, you're reacting. And reaction-based rotations in mid-game don't look bad until they do. So before we talk about endgame zones, before we talk about pinwheeling or windows or letting the zone do the work, we need a better way to think about how we transition from looting to position. Because mid-game isn't about surviving anymore. It's about taking control. Let's revisit our 3-question framework we went over last episode. Just like in the early game, everything starts with the destination. But mid-game, we're not asking where we want to loot. We're asking where we want to fight from later. What area gives us control over space, not just safety? Where do we have cover, height, or information when the next teams are forced to move? This isn't about claiming the final circle yet. It's about putting ourselves somewhere that lets us say no to bad fights while forcing other teams into fights that favor you. When you decide where you want to be playing from in mid-game, you stop drifting and start shaping the lobby. Once we know where we want to be playing from, the next question isn't how fast we can get there, it's what risks are we taking on the way there. In mid-game, the straight line is not always the safest line. Sometimes it's the best option. Other times it's how you walk straight into a problem. If the direct route cuts through a hot POI, places like Defense Nexus or downtown, you're not necessarily rotating, you're asking to be seen by every team that already got there first. In those situations, rotating with the edge can be much safer. Not because it's faster, but because it reduces the number of angles you're exposed to. Pinching your routes against the zone removes half the lobby from the equation. But that doesn't mean edge rotations are always right. If the space between hot zones is quiet, if teams are distracted and fighting, if there's cover along the way, that direct route might actually be your safest window. Mid-game rotations are about recognizing which space is temporarily empty and moving before it fills. And this is where early intel matters. If you paid attention to where teams landed, if you tracked which POIs lit up early, you already know where the density is and where it isn't. Good mid-game rotations aren't guesses. They're informed decisions based on what you already saw. Early rotation isn't about speed, if you remember, it's about permission. And if nobody can realistically punish you on the route, then that's your window. And windows close fast in the mid-game. So question 2 isn't about choosing what's convenient, it's about choosing what's controllable. Once you understand the risk, then you can ask the final question. Once we picked a destination and picked a route, the last question isn't where or how, it's why. What future problem does this rotation actually solve? By the mid-game, the problems change. You're not solving for loot anymore. You're solving for things like cover, angles, and third-party risk. A good mid-game rotation reduces the number of hard decisions you'll face in the endgame. If your rotation doesn't make the next circle easier to play, it probably makes it harder. And remember, just because a rotation gives you something useful, like a loadout for instance, doesn't mean it's a good rotation. That's why we always check across all 3 questions. Alright, now let's see that in practice. We'll walk through 3 mid-game scenarios that show how these questions decide the difference between a clean setup and a chaotic end. If you watched my early game video, you might recognize this game state. We're picking up where we left off in scenario 2, after we left ground 0. This is the first real mid-game decision point, and it's where most teams stop playing with intention. We see multiple teams in the area, and we know they're going to collide as the circle closes, and we don't want to be caught in that blender. We want to end up in center zone, holding a strong structure, a place with hard cover, multiple sight lines, and control the lobby as it's forced to move. As we rotate west, teams at distance start trying to pressure us with kill streaks. This is the mid-game reality. You're visible to more teams for more angles for longer. It's why your pathing matters. Even when teams know where you are, good routes reduce how much damage they can actually do to you. Now we evaluate our routes. The straight line looks faster and has a shiny loadout on it, but it cuts through open space and active sight lines. So we take the route through natural cover to the southwest. Now our original plan was to rotate towards that loadout, but the minimap lights up with activity. And this is why we use all three questions when choosing rotation. The loadout isn't on the way to where we want to end up, and the route to it exposes us to way too many teams. Even though it does solve a future problem for us, it creates a bigger problem right now. Your endgame position is your North Star. Don't lose it chasing detours. We go house to house to reduce angles and limit who can punish us. As we move through the houses, we're constantly managing angles. Every wall we use removes a line of sight. Every doorway we clear provides us with just a little bit more control. This is what safe progress looks like in the mid-game. Controlling angles so that you're more likely to be able to take fights on your terms. We saw a helicopter land in front of us earlier, so we're already expecting a team in this direction. This isn't guessing. This is playing with information. We find the team, take the fight on our terms, and clear the path forward.
Ow, ow, ow.
Ow!
Now the loadout is across the street from the building we want to hold. We didn't rotate for the loadout. We took the loadout because it was on the way to where we already wanted to be. We cross the street and take control of our structure. Hard cover, multiple sight lines, strong circle position as the lobby is forced to rotate into us. This is what winning mid-game looks like, beginning with the end in mind and letting that goal guide every rotation.
Move to that location! Enemy helicopter!
We're rotating a little behind the zone. Chem and redline storage are both hot, but we spot a short window to snake between them and make it to London Oil Works. Our target is somewhere in the southern hills between Evac Bravo and Security Gate. Good cover in those rolling hills and rotation options. That's where we want to fight from. I call the drone up and scope the path. It is chaos out there. Multiple teams fighting outside defense nexus. The drone also reveals several teams to our north rotating with a circle at their backs. If you can see that much movement, it's not noise. It's the map showing you where the doors have already closed. Given the chaos on the straight line ahead and the teams rotating with the zone to our north, we decide to pinwheel and rotate along the edge of the zone southbound instead of forcing our way through the middle. Pinwheeling keeps the safe zone at our backs and reduces the number of angles we have to manage. As we move, a new window opens. The straight line between Security Gate and Oil Works looks temporarily clear. With updated circle intel, we convert the pinwheel into a quick straight shot to get further south and closer to the hills. Mid-game rotations are dynamic, so don't be stubborn with your initial decision. As new intel presents itself, make adjustments to ensure that you're giving yourself maximum control. You can pinwheel to stay safe, and then exploit those windows as they appear. We pop a UAV for a wider string of intel, and grab a bounty contract to track movement. These aren't for kills, they're for information. They tell us which zones are free and which aren't. That extra data turns guesses into choices. As we rotate south, the teams to our north collide, and one squad spots us. They try to extract via the helicopter. They're hoping to turn the heli into a getaway or flank tool, and I make the call to take the RPG shot. The heli's down, and that removes a major threat, and prevents them from using aerial mobility to punish our rotation. One well-timed play can close the window on a whole set of threats. We pop smokes, push through, and finish the pinwheel into the hills. The squad that tried to use the heli gets consumed by the teams that they were trying to escape, the exact situation that we were working to stay out of. This is important. When the middle of the map turns into chaos, you don't need to force your way through it. Rotate around it and let the lobby solve that problem for you. In this situation, we used edge movement to stay safe, exploited a straight window when it appeared, and then used intel and a decisive play to remove an aerial threat. Now we're in the hills with sightlines and options.
I just saw him. He jumped down.
For our final scenario, we start south of the tennis courts. Early fights stall our rotation. Teams across the river even join into third and fourth party from outside defense nexus. Thanks, guys. We take turns saving each other's lives and trade revives under smoke. Somehow we manage to stay alive and keep our momentum despite nearly getting consumed by the fire.
I'm 1 HP.
After all that chaos and a brief broken leg scare, the fire's at our backs, and the only realistic path forward is the straight line into the map. Our end goal right now is just to get as far ahead of the zone as possible, and once we get further ahead, we can reassess. Unfortunately for us, the straight line pushes us directly through some of the most contested parts of the map, downtown. In a situation like this, that means we're evaluating vehicles. In a future video, we'll break down the strengths and weaknesses of all the basic vehicles in the game, when to use each one, and how to translate those selections into more dubs. But in this specific situation, the game makes the decision for us in a rare moment where the BR gods shine down on me in a positive way. Just when everything looks grim, we spot a helicopter next to a loadout. That instantly changes our options. Instead of forcing our way through the lobby on foot, we can bypass the congestion entirely and make a direct play for position. We take it. Grab the loadout, get airborne just as the zone closes behind us. And now the question becomes, where do we convert this mobility into position? From the air, Lighthouse is clearly the strongest option. And if we can secure it, we get height, sight lines, and control over multiple late game rotations. We fly around, everything appears to be clear. We pop the UAV that we have in pocket to help us confirm the area around it is clear as well, and we commit. Once we clear it out, we now have arguably the strongest map position going into the late game. This is a high-risk, high-reward moment. Vehicles in Battle Royale aren't just transportation. They're tools for changing how you interact with the map. Simply put, they create opportunities that don't exist for teams rotating on foot, turning impossible rotations into realistic ones. Instead of forcing our way through the lobby on foot, the heli let us skip the chaos entirely and take the strongest position on the map, setting us up for the lobby to come to us. Early game decides where your match starts, but the mid game decides how much control you carry into the end. When you get these rotations right, the end game becomes simpler and you can feel your momentum building. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, okay, I'm set up, I've got position, now what? That's exactly what the end game's about. And in the next video, we'll break down how to play late game zones, find windows, pinwheel safely, and let the circle do the work for you. I've got a ton of content planned to help you improve your gameplay in 2026 as I work towards my first 1,000 subscribers. So if this kind of breakdown is useful for you, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the final circle.